Today I wanted to talk to you about my top 10 romance books. These are all in the genre of romance, but there are a lot of sub-genres, some of which I will cover, some of which I won't. Stick around for the end of the video for a bonus. And let's start at number 10. At number 10, we have A Marriage of Unconvenience by Chelsea M. Cameron. I'm looking down because I have my notes down here. This is a contemporary novel about a marriage of convenience between two women. So it's a women loving women romance story. It's really slow burn, and there's a bit of getting to know your sexuality and such, and it's wonderful. There's also zero homophobia as far as I remember, and it's just fluffy and lovely. At number 9, we have A Lady's Desire by Lily Maxton. This one is set in Victorian England, I think. Might be Edwardian. I'm not quite sure, but I think it's around Victorian. It's about two childhood friends who meet again when grown up and navigate their feelings for each other. I really appreciate this book for how the author solved the happily ever after or happy for now ending, because it's a bit tough to do for a same-sex couple in this time period. At number 8, we have Prisoner of Love by Beverly Jenkins. This book is set in the Old West, and there's a lady who has been left by her husband, and she has a farm to run and needs help running that farm. And then there's a prisoner who's going to be let out if he marries. So she decides, okay, let's marry this convict, and cozy romance ensues. It's pretty sort of insta, but it's really good, and the main character, the woman, really gets to discover her sexuality, which is really lovely to read about. At number 7, we have Taste by Kris Bryant. This is a women loving women story about a culinary school teacher and student. They're about the same age, so the sort of teacher-student thing isn't very explored. They just have to keep it quite kind of secret for a while. There's so much good food in this book, and there's also a kid who's like really well portrayed. Like, she actually behaves as a kid and talks as a child. It's just really cute, and it's always a bonus when you when you have good food. It's rather well written as well. At number 6, we have Poison or Protect by Gail Carriger. This is the first book in the series called, let's see, I have it here, Delightfully Deadly by Gail Carriger. This is an omnibus of the series, so it's the first book, and it's a lady spy who finds her happily ever after, really. And in the book, she tackles her fear and fear of men and what they can be like when they're bad men. So it's men who love women, men and women romance, and I think it's lovely. I think this whole series is lovely. It's kind of an epilogue to a YA series. There's a YA series called the Finishing School series, also by Gail Carriger, and the Delightfully Deadly stories are each of the main characters in that book grown up and finding their love, which is lovely. But yeah, this is not YA. This is definitely adult. There's explicit sex scenes in this. There's explicit sex scenes in all the books that I'm going to mention on this list. Okay, next one is another one by Gail Carriger, How to Marry a Werewolf. I have this on audiobook and it's fantastic. It's, by now I know the entire book, so I can just put it on, and it's a kind of cozy book to listen to when I'm not having a great time. And basically it's an American girl who gets sent to London to net herself a werewolf husband. This is the same universe as the Delightfully Deadly series. There's werewolves and vampires that exist in high society in Victorian era England. And so we get to follow this American lady as she does the sort of politics of the ballroom and courts this werewolf. And I think it's just a really cozy, lovely book. At number 4, we have A Gentleman Never Keeps Score. This is the second book in the Seducing the Sedgwick series by Sebastian. It's about a white man who has been left a townhouse in London, and he the expectation that he would live as a socialite, and he doesn't really want that life. So throughout this book, there's both a falling in love with a black innkeeper that he meets, but also just a sort of downward travel in station, which I find really interesting. And I just love the characters in this. There's some really strong characters, and yeah. So this is a men loving men book, in case that wasn't clear. At number 3, we have Omega Objection, or The Omega Objection, I have it here, by G.L. Carriger. This is again Gail Carriger, just a different pen name. This is the second book in the San Andreas Shifters series. I can recommend the entire series. Definitely read the entire series. This is my favorite from the series. It's about it's about a guy who doesn't really believe in his own worth, meeting a guy who, what should I say, is on the run and doesn't have a home or a family, really. Don't be put off by the title. This is not Omegaverse or anything like that. And it's not, doesn't pretend to be rooted in any reality. This is fantasy. There's magic, there's other types of shifters, so this is about werewolves, but there's like fox shifters and everything. So yeah, I really like this universe, and it's quite a lot, like, it's about kindness and taking care of each other and found family, and I just really, really enjoy that. At number 2, we have Hunger Pangs, True Love Bites by Joy Demorra. This, for some reason, when I think of romance books, this tends to like fall out of my mind because it just feels like so much more than a romance book. But this is about a disabled war veteran werewolf who comes home and is injured from the war and needs something to do. And what he does is find himself a post on an island run by vampires. And werewolves and vampires in this world don't really get along. But, well, this specific werewolf with a specific vampire get along very well. There's some past trauma to be worked through. They just help each other grow in such a lovely way and like support each other all along. There is some kink in this book. There is some kink in this book as well. But yeah, it's just a lovely book, and I highly recommend it. Again, a fantasy, fantasy paranormal book. Number 1, we have From Scratch, the first book in the Welcome to Seaport series by Katrina Jackson. This is just such delicious fluff with spice. It's so the premise of the book is that a woman is deciding to quit her career, her intellectual career, and start a bakery in a small town in the US. The town is Seaport, and it's fictional, but yeah, she moves to this tiny town, and then as a sort of PR thing, she decides to go serve donuts to the police chief and the fire chief. And those two have been friends for a long time and are sort of feeling out each other. Maybe they have feelings, and then she comes into the mix and they both have feelings for her. And so sparks fly, romance ensues. It's beautiful. So this is a novel about a triad, and it's just really respectful, and it's just lovely. And yeah, all the characters in this book are black, and I don't know, I really love reading about minorities living their best lives and just having a great time. It does so much for my mental image of things, but it's also just lovely. This whole series is just lovely and filled with people of colour having a great time of it. And yeah, having a great life. And I highly recommend this book. Each book in the series are quite short. This book is also quite short, and yeah, pretty cheap. I'm not sponsored at all. So yeah, those are my top 10 romance books. I have mentioned things from different genres like paranormal and shifter romance, fantasy romance, contemporary romance. There was a few of those. Women loving women, men loving men, and then there's like a couple that I don't have that much, I don't know that much about, but it's also historical. But I haven't read many in the genre sort of Highlander medieval romance. I'm still sort of trying to navigate that. The problem is that it was very popular in the 90s, and there was a lot of non-consensual sex in books in the 90s, like 80s and 90s. So I'm not, I'm a little bit scared to jump in because I don't like that in the books I read. The other genre that I haven't mentioned is alien romance. And I've read a few of those and I found some gems. I can highly recommend The Fifth Gender by Gail Carriger. By now you can realize that I really love Gail Carriger, so yeah, this is just a default recommendation. But also this, like in January and February this year, I read the Claiming series by Lyn Gala, and the first book is strictly a romance. The rest I think I would categorize as sci-fi. But in the first book, there's this human who's a linguist who moves to a planet and starts learning their culture and stuff, like the alien culture, and an alien who falls for this human. So it's really fascinating with like dealing with culture differences and such things. And like when you deal with aliens, you can make the culture that much different to make us think about ourselves in a new light. So that was really fascinating in that series. But yeah, that's the bonus recommendation from me. And of course, these are my favorites, so I might like tropes that you don't. But everyone has different things, and maybe you'll find something good in this list. Yeah. So that was all for today, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!